Hello everyone. Welcome back. Today, we've got some crucial news you don't want to miss. Let's dive right into the top financial headlines and break down what's happening. The Federal Reserve's Federal Open Market Committee, FOMC, recently concluded a two-day meeting, deciding to cut interest rates by 25 basis points. However, in yesterday's press conference, Chair Jerome Powell offered little in the way of clear forward guidance for future policy. Instead, media attention shifted toward political speculation, focusing on gossip about Trump's relationship with the Fed and whether Powell might resign. This led to several reporters pressing Powell repeatedly with questions like, "Will Trump force you to resign?" or "Would you consider stepping down voluntarily?" forcing Powell to assert 4 times that he has no intention of resigning. This line of questioning reflects a media fascination with personal drama over the more substantial implications of the Fed's decisions. Despite the media frenzy, the Fed meeting did deliver notable shifts that could influence international capital markets for some time. After the dust settled, the Wall Street Journal, often seen as an unofficial Fed news outlet, published an insightful piece by prominent journalist Nick Timiraos. This article explained the FOMC's evolving policy direction and highlighted the Fed's new priorities. The headline read, "Trump enters just as the Fed is shifting its focus," with the subheading, "After its single-minded attention on bringing inflation down, the central bank has pivoted toward achieving a soft landing." According to Timiraos, following 2 consecutive rate cuts this year, the Fed is aiming to increase the chances of a soft landing. Whether the Fed can achieve this soft landing will directly impact the economy that Trump inherits. If things go smoothly, previous rate hikes will stabilize the economy, keeping unemployment low and inflation around the Fed's 2% target, a best-case scenario. But if economic growth falters, Trump could face a downturn similar to what George W. Bush encountered in 2001. Additionally, any resurgence in inflation could pressure the Fed to halt rate cuts, raising the risk of a hard landing for the economy. Timiraos also traced the Fed's recent actions back to its aggressive inflation-fighting campaign that started in 2022, when it raised rates at the fastest pace in 40 years to combat record-high inflation. By the second half of 2023, the Fed paused rate hikes and maintained the highest interest rate seen in 2 decades. In September, core inflation in the US had dropped to 2.7%, down from 5.6% 2 years prior. Wall Street is now less concerned about recession, though bond yields have risen as investors expect more modest rate cuts than those seen earlier. Following yesterday's 25 basis point cut, the US federal funds rate now sits between 4.5% and 7.5%. The concept of a neutral interest rate, one that neither stimulates nor cools the economy, is fluid, adapting to economic conditions. For instance, when growth is sluggish, a neutral rate might be around 2%, but in stronger economic times, it could be closer to 4%. With rates now in the 4.5% range and the economy still strong, Timiraos suggests the Fed's recent moves are aimed at tempering Wall Street's rate cut expectations. In essence, the Fed is signaling that it may not return rates to the levels seen before the aggressive hikes in 2022. Before inflation surged, the Fed might have gradually raised rates, but it had to adjust quickly when inflation skyrocketed. Now, as conditions stabilize, the Fed is taking a step back and exploring the appropriate level for its benchmark rate. Timiraos hints that the Fed may not know exactly where this level should be and is gauging market responses to fine-tune its policy. In terms of rate cuts, the Fed's course will largely depend on economic resilience. As long as the economy avoids recession and continues on a soft landing path, further rate cuts are on the table. But if growth slows, the Fed may accelerate cuts, while a resurgence in inflation could lead to a pause. Powell also reassured Wall Street yesterday, clarifying that the Fed isn't considering rate hikes right now. While uncertainties remain, Powell's remarks offer some relief to markets, which are now less worried about a return to aggressive rate hikes. Timiraos' article thus provides valuable insight into the Fed's evolving policy logic, giving investors and analysts a clearer picture of the trends likely to shape US markets in the coming months. With this context, readers are better equipped to anticipate how the Fed's actions will impact the economy. The second key news story comes from Bloomberg, covering significant political upheaval in Germany, news that may have been overshadowed by the US election. The headline reads, "German Chancellor rebuffs demands for confidence vote next week," with a subheading, "Scholz wants next election to be brought forward to March." Poll leading conservatives pushing for January national vote. This story reveals a major political shakeup in Germany. While the US election unfolds, Germany is dealing with a political earthquake of its own. Currently, Germany's government is a traffic light coalition of three parties: the Social Democratic Party, SPD, led by Chancellor Olaf Scholz, the pro-business Free Democratic Party, FDP, led by Finance Minister Christian Lindner, and the Greens. However, earlier this week, Scholz unexpectedly dismissed Lindner from his role as finance minister, challenging the coalition's foundation. The coalition agreement gave Scholz the chancellorship because it united these three parties with a parliamentary majority. By removing Lindner, Scholz jeopardizes the coalition's stability and his position as chancellor. So what's next for Germany's government? According to Bloomberg, Scholz has a calculated plan. With the collapse of the three-party coalition, German law calls for a confidence vote in parliament. Scholz's SPD reportedly intends to lose this vote deliberately, likely set for January 15th. If the confidence vote fails, the government will dissolve, leading to new elections, currently planned for March. This strategy seems to be part of a carefully orchestrated plan by Scholz to dismiss the conservative FDP and its finance minister to force early elections. Interestingly, Germany has seen a similar political gamble before, back in 2005, when the SPD triggered early elections, believing it would benefit them. However, they miscalculated, and the Conservative Christian Democratic Union, CDU, ended up winning, bringing Angela Merkel into power for 16 years. Now Scholz is once again betting on early elections to shore up his power, but it's uncertain if this strategy will work. When asked about the decision, Scholz acknowledged the difficulty of his situation but defended his choice, saying, "The government is fulfilling its duties, and the public can decide how we move forward." Currently, however, the polling outlook is not in Scholz's favor. The CDU, Merkel's former party, leads with 30% support, followed by the right-wing Alternative for Germany, AfD, with strong ties to China and Russia at 20%. Scholz's SPD ranks third with only 16%, followed by the Greens at 14%. Should elections occur in March, the SPD would be at risk of losing its governing role. Scholz's hope is that by delaying the confidence vote until January, he'll have time to boost the SPD's popularity through new policies, such as tax cuts for workers and support for Germany's manufacturing sector. However, passing these measures may prove difficult without the coalition support, making this a high-stakes gamble. This political turmoil in Germany comes as a reminder that while the world focuses on the US election, Germany's own government is in disarray. One analysis even suggested that Germany's chaos has left the European Union leaderless, complicating matters for the entire bloc. The third major story making international headlines today is about escalating violence in Amsterdam, as reported by the Wall Street Journal under the headline, "Anti-Semitic attacks in Amsterdam prompt tight security at Jewish sites." The report details that 5 people were hospitalized, 62 individuals were arrested, and Dutch leaders condemned the incident as an act of anti-Semitism. This incident has shocked the international community with its suddenness. The event was triggered when an Israeli soccer team traveled to the Netherlands to play against the well-known Dutch team Ajax in Amsterdam. Many Israeli fans also traveled to Amsterdam to support their team. However, after the game, chaos erupted. Some individuals in the crowd began chanting slogans like "Free Palestine," which seemed to be a deliberate provocation, and violence broke out, leading to assaults on Israeli fans. Following the incident, Israel's national airline announced plans to provide free rescue flights starting Friday. Additionally, Israel's National Security Council advised Israeli citizens in Amsterdam to avoid public spaces, stay sheltered in hotel rooms, and refrain from displaying any Israeli or Jewish symbols. Even before the match, there were anti-Semitic and anti-Israel slogans seen around Amsterdam, and Dutch police made several arrests. Yet the scale of the post-game violence has left the international community stunned, with many fearing similar incidents may occur again in the future. Our fourth major story focuses on the future of Ukraine under a potential second term for Donald Trump, a topic of significant interest and speculation. Many people are wondering, what approach would Trump take toward the war in Ukraine? Could he abandon Ukraine's cause? The Wall Street Journal has been widely cited as a primary source on this, offering insights into Trump's potential strategy. Trump has avoided revealing his plan publicly, arguing that doing so would hinder negotiations. According to the Wall Street Journal, Trump has promised to end the Ukraine war by Inauguration Day, though he is still weighing competing proposals from his advisors. This stance contrasts sharply with President Biden's approach of indefinite support for Ukraine as long as needed. Here's a summary of key points from the Wall Street Journal's reporting. Defined objective versus open-ended support. Trump's approach emphasizes ending the conflict by a specific deadline. This contrasts with Biden's more open-ended commitment to support Ukraine without a defined outcome, which some argue lacks clarity on the ultimate goals or benefits for Ukraine. Competing proposals. Trump's advisors are divided into two main camps. One group, including former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, advocates a solution that avoids giving Moscow any significant gains. On the other hand, advisors closer to Trump, like Richard Grenell, prioritize ending the war quickly, even if it means Kiev making major concessions. Proposed peace plan. While Trump has not disclosed a specific plan, his inner circle has suggested ideas that include freezing the current front lines, keeping control over occupied territories, and establishing a buffer zone monitored by European peacekeepers. This approach would also likely require Ukraine to defer NATO membership aspirations for at least 20 years, with the US promising continued arms support to deter future Russian aggression. In a separate piece, The Economist recently analyzed why Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky might be inclined to welcome a Trump-led peace initiative. Privately, Zelensky has reportedly expressed frustration with the Biden administration's cautious approach, which he feels lacks decisive objectives for Ukraine. According to The Economist, Zelensky might find aspects of Trump's proposal more practical, particularly if it involves stronger assurances of American support without further escalation of the conflict. While Trump's return to the White House may seem unsettling to Kiev, The Economist argues that Trump, being a transactional politician, would likely not fully abandon Ukraine, as such a move could face significant opposition within his own party. However, he might push for concessions from Ukraine, potentially opening up access to resources or compromising on certain democratic values. It remains uncertain how Russian President Vladimir Putin would react to such a plan, but reports indicate that Trump's team is working toward a proposal ready by January 20th. Whether or not Ukraine and Russia accept it, a Trump-led approach to ending the war is becoming increasingly likely, given the potential shift in US policy under his leadership. For Ukraine, adapting to this new direction may be inevitable, especially as securing continued US support could prove challenging without adjustments to align with Trump's strategy. Our fifth story today is from Bloomberg, titled "The Crypto World's Victory Lap Begins." This article highlights a significant moment for cryptocurrency enthusiasts and the industry itself, which is celebrating Trump's win in the 2024 US presidential election. This victory could mark a turning point for the crypto world, an industry that has often been met with skepticism and pushed to the margins in mainstream international discourse. Bloomberg suggests this time could be different. The report opens with an illustration of election night on November 5. Dozens of Bitcoin fans, MAGA supporters, and curious locals gathered at a Bitcoin-themed bar in New York's Greenwich Village. On the bar's wall, screens displayed Bitcoin prices, which rose dramatically as positive news for Trump came through, eventually breaking the $73,000 mark. For Ohio Republican candidate Mordner, the scene was particularly encouraging. Running to unseat Senator Sherrod Brown, Mordner promised to oppose Brown's calls for hearings on the use of cryptocurrency by terrorist organizations, a stance that resonated with crypto supporters. Brown, a senior senator from Ohio, had long been a vocal critic of cryptocurrency. Mordner, meanwhile, received $40 million from crypto companies to help him in his race, ultimately winning the election and contributing to the Republican Senate majority. Bloomberg describes this as part of a broader red wave in which Republicans gain traction, not only because of Trump's popularity but also due to support from various sectors, including the crypto industry. The article delves into how the crypto sector has reached this point. In September 2023, the industry was at a low point, especially with the trial of crypto mogul Sam Bankman-Fried on fraud charges, which dealt a blow to the sector's image. Coinbase co-founder Brian Armstrong, a major figure in crypto, argued that the industry's survival depended on changing the government's view of cryptocurrency. At a major industry conference in New York, Armstrong laid out a bold plan: crypto had to become a political force by financially engaging in Washington. He rallied the industry to contribute as much as established players like Wall Street and Big Oil. This call for action resonated. By the 2024 election season, Armstrong and the Political Action Committee he led, called File Shack, managed to raise over $200 million, of which he personally contributed $75 million. Bloomberg highlights that these contributions were not solely for Trump's campaign, but were used to support a range of congressional candidates across the U.S., both in the Senate and the House. While many recipients were Republicans, some Democratic candidates supportive of crypto also received funding. In this way, the crypto industry showed a strategic, decentralized approach, aiming to build influence at every level rather than aligning with one party alone. Ultimately, this massive mobilization made cryptocurrency one of the largest political spending sectors in the 2024 election cycle, surpassing many traditional industries. By building coalitions and aligning with like-minded candidates, crypto advocates hope to influence a shift in regulatory perspectives across the board. They believed this approach would lead to a friendlier political and public environment for the industry, increasing its growth potential in the US. Bloomberg notes that Trump himself appears to understand the industry's resilience and potential. While he had previously expressed skepticism toward cryptocurrency, his recent position was pragmatic. Since crypto cannot be eradicated, the US should instead lead it, turning it into a strategic asset. Trump argued that letting other nations dominate crypto would harm US interests, and by leading in this sector, America could both control and profit from it. In contrast, Harris also adjusted his stance on crypto during the campaign, but without Trump's level of clarity. He expressed a cautious willingness to give it a try, whereas Trump's vision was sharper: embrace crypto as a tool of American influence. This difference in approach illustrates Trump's readiness to confront tough issues directly, as he has done in the past on topics like trade deficits and the dollar's role in global finance. While previous administrations were cautious about these topics, Trump pushed them to the forefront. This Bloomberg report sheds light on how cryptocurrency, once a fringe industry, has emerged as a significant force in US politics, not just in shaping opinion but in investing heavily to secure a favorable political landscape. Through these efforts, the industry is forging a path toward greater acceptance, influence, and possibly a stronger future in the US. Our sixth major story comes from The Economist, which published a critical analysis titled, "Democrats Need to Understand Americans Think They're Worse." This is one of the first in-depth reflections from a prominent international media outlet on the Democratic Party's challenges in the aftermath of the 2024 US election. Many recent post-election reports have been fragmented or emotional, but The Economist takes a more measured, third-party perspective on what has gone wrong for the Democrats. The article opens by posing a provocative question: if you believe that Trump's abrasive style, alleged incompetence, and attempts to overturn the last election should disqualify him from leadership, why do so many Americans still see the Democrats as a worse option? This election represents a huge win for Trump, who has rebounded despite the Capitol riots of January 6, 2021, and the internal opposition he faced from prominent Republican figures like Mitch McConnell, who once dismissed him as unfit for office. However, as The Economist explains, Trump's seeming weaknesses, his defiance of criticism, reluctance to admit mistakes, and refusal to concede, have instead been sources of political strength. Much like in 2016, Trump leveraged his control over the Republican base to clear the field in a crowded primary and then used fear of the other side to rally support. Trump's impact on American politics, they argue, is profound. His resilience, mastery of both traditional and new media, and instinctive grasp of the fears and needs of many Americans have allowed him to shape US politics and policy more than any leader since Reagan. Yet Trump's success stands in contrast to his popularity, or lack thereof. The Economist points out that Trump's average approval rating during his first term was only 41%, the lowest since Gallup began tracking presidential approval under Truman. Even so, his victory should give the Democrats pause. Despite widespread disdain among Democratic voters, Trump's broad support is undeniable. Biden's approach, investing heavily in manufacturing and infrastructure to win back blue-collar workers, failed to offset Trump's grip on this demographic. Unlike Clinton and Obama, Biden avoided making policy decisions that might have disappointed the Democratic left but appealed to the majority of Americans. One stark example highlighted by The Economist is Biden's handling of immigration. By dismantling Trump-era barriers for undocumented immigrants without offering clear alternatives, Biden reignited Trump's most effective wedge issue. When Biden reintroduced some of these restrictions this spring, over 4 million immigrants had already crossed the southern border since he took office, far exceeding the numbers under Trump. This policy reversal has been damaging not only for the Democratic Party but also for the immigrants they aim to help and the causes they support. Under Biden, the proportion of Americans favoring reduced legal immigration rose from a minority to a majority, as did support for large-scale deportations. The article then explores the Democrats' approach to defending democracy. Despite Biden's achievements in areas like economic growth and wage increases, he has often failed to highlight these successes or communicate effectively with the public, something Trump excelled at. Biden's approval rating fell to 36%, prompting concern within his own party. Many Democrats argue he should not seek another term. Harris's early campaign efforts have faced similar challenges, as she struggles to differentiate herself from Biden and distance herself from the unflattering clips used in Trump's ads. Her stance on several key issues has alienated a broad swath of American voters. The Economist ends by questioning whether Democrats truly understand democracy. Biden once spoke passionately about the precious nature of democratic values, but the article argues that the Democrats have increasingly pursued policies that align with their own convictions without regard for how the general population feels. True democracy, The Economist suggests, involves respecting and responding to public opinion, not attempting to lead or guide the people against their will. Without genuinely listening to the American people, the Democrats may continue to struggle not only in winning elections but also in maintaining a true connection with the very people they claim to represent. Finally, according to Bloomberg, Trump's potential re-election could significantly affect various world leaders, given his tendency to view international relations through a personal and strategic lens. This analysis highlights which leaders may benefit and which could face challenges. Leaders likely to benefit. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. With Trump's re-election, Israel might receive renewed support, especially in military aid, which Biden had scaled back due to concerns over civilian casualties in the Israel-Hamas conflict. Trump is expected to fully restore these aid packages. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Trump's foreign policy approach may relax the strain in US-India relations that emerged under Biden. Biden has been hesitant to criticize Modi for authoritarian tendencies and alleged involvement in a political assassination in Canada, balancing his Indo-Pacific strategy instead. Trump's stance, as expressed by his ally J.D. Vance, is focused solely on America's benefit, putting less emphasis on intervening in India's domestic politics. Russian President Vladimir Putin. Trump's re-election could present opportunities for Putin to exploit Western divisions, especially regarding Ukraine. Trump's America First policy might lead to reduced NATO unity and possibly cut future aid to Ukraine, as recent reports hint at a long-standing, friendly relationship between the two leaders. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Trump had previously disregarded calls for accountability regarding the assassination of journalist Jamal Khashoggi, taking a pragmatic view of US-Saudi relations. The Crown Prince anticipates improved relations with a Trump administration, in contrast to Biden's critical stance. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. As a right-wing leader widely accepted in the West, Meloni may find an ally in Trump, who values her position despite Western skepticism toward other right-wing leaders like Hungary's Viktor Orbán. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Trump's foreign policy is unlikely to challenge Erdogan's governance style, focusing instead on issues directly impacting the US, which could ease tensions between the countries. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Based on a positive rapport during Trump's first term, Kim may feel less international pressure, anticipating that Trump would adopt a familiar, non-interventionist approach. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán. Although disliked by many Western leaders, Orbán enjoys a good relationship with Trump, who values Orbán's staunch positions on several issues. Argentinian presidential candidate Javier Milei, a populist with views similar to Trump's, is expected to strengthen ties with the US under a Trump administration. He plans to visit Trump soon, establishing a relationship based on mutual ideologies. Leaders likely to face challenges. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Trump is expected to reduce US financial aid to Ukraine, a shift that would severely impact Zelensky's efforts in the ongoing conflict with Russia. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian. Trump's long-standing opposition to Iran is expected to intensify, likely reigniting tensions from his first term, when he withdrew from the Iran nuclear deal and considered military actions against Iran. Chinese President Xi Jinping. Trump's proposed tariffs and plans for a trade war could intensify China's economic challenges, making his victory particularly unwelcome for Xi. Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba. Trump's relationship with Japan may be affected by his close ties to former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Shigeru Ishiba, who opposes some of Abe's policies, could find it difficult to maintain strong relations with a Trump administration. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum, Trump's hardline immigration stance could lead to increased pressure on Mexico to curb migration, a stance that might strain relations. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, Trump reportedly harbors resentment towards Starmer, who criticized him following the January 6 Capitol attack, viewing it as an affront to democracy. French President Emmanuel Macron, Trump is known to have a low opinion of Macron, often questioning France's contributions to historical US-France alliances. Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, Lula, who replaced Trump's ally Jair Bolsonaro, may face increased scrutiny from Trump, who views Bolsonaro as a more favorable partner. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, Trump's previous conflicts with Germany over trade issues, particularly regarding auto tariffs, may resurface, affecting relations with Scholz, who was Merkel's finance minister at the time. Bloomberg's analysis highlights Trump's unique perspective on international alliances, which doesn't always align with traditional American foreign policy frameworks. As he pursues an America First agenda, these relationships will likely reflect his personal preferences and interests, an aspect that will be particularly apparent if he serves a second term. That's all for today. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more updates. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.